Something strange is happening in America right now. The economy is not simply crashing, and it is not simply booming. It is splitting. Some workers see hiring signs. Some families see bills they cannot outrun. And whole industries are quietly fighting for air while the headlines argue about whether everything is fine. This video breaks down 15 sectors of the American economy under real pressure right now, using current public data and industry reports. By the end, you will know which weak spots are temporary, which are structural, and why the pain often shows up before the official alarms ring. Start with the sector that looks rich from the street but fragile on the balance sheet: commercial real estate, especially older office buildings. This is one of the clearest examples of an economy pretending to heal while the wound is still open. Prime offices in strong cities can still win tenants, but the average older tower is in a different fight. Vacancy near 1/5 of the market means many buildings are not just waiting for workers to come back. They are waiting for a business model to come back. The controversial part is simple. Work from home did not kill every office. It exposed how many offices were already too expensive, too outdated, and too dependent on long leases signed in a different world. When a lease expires, companies do not ask whether the lobby has marble. They ask how many desks are actually being used. Many owners bought or refinanced when money was cheaper. Now they face higher rates, lower values, and tenants demanding better space with less commitment. Office pain spreads to lenders, city tax bases, cleaning crews, lunch shops, security workers, and transit systems. The empty cubicle is not just an empty cubicle. It is a missing coffee sale, a missing train ride, and sometimes a bank loan that suddenly looks weaker than it did on paper. Next comes housing, the market everyone talks about, but few people explain honestly. The problem is not only that homes are expensive, the problem is that the housing machine is jammed from both sides. Buyers are squeezed by high prices, high mortgage rates, insurance costs, property taxes, and closing costs. Sellers are trapped by old low mortgage rates they do not want to give up. Builders want to build, but land, labor, materials, financing, and local rules keep the cost floor high. So the market freezes. Sales can move up a tiny amount in 1 month and still feel dead for agents, lenders, title companies, movers, and first-time buyers. When fewer people move, fewer people renovate. Fewer people buy couches. Fewer people hire contractors. Fewer people upgrade appliances. The quiet controversy is that many people celebrate high home values as wealth, but for millions of younger households, those same values are a wall. A house can be somebody's retirement plan and somebody else's locked door at the same time. Builders now offer incentives, rate buydowns, and discounts in some markets, but those tricks do not fix affordability when the monthly payment still scares buyers away. Housing is not broken like a collapsed bridge. It is stuck like a door swollen by heat. Now look at retail, where the headline can say sales are rising while many stores still feel weaker. Official retail numbers show consumers are still spending, but the details tell a sharper story. Online and non-store sellers keep gaining share, while weaker department stores, electronics sellers, and mall-based shops fight for traffic. The sector is not dying, it is being sorted. The winners have scale, data, delivery, private labels, or bargain power. The losers depend on bored foot traffic and impulse buying from people who now check prices on their phones before reaching the register. The controversial truth is that many retailers trained customers to never trust the sticker price. There is always a sale, a coupon, a membership price, a store card offer, or a limited time discount. That sounds good for shoppers, but it creates a trust problem. If everything is marked down, people wonder what anything is actually worth. Add shrinkflation, return restrictions, delivery fees, and loyalty programs that collect data in exchange for tiny rewards, and shopping starts to feel like a negotiation. A family facing higher rent, insurance, food, and loan payments does not stop spending. It spends on survival first. That is brutal for stores selling nice-to-have items. The cash register may still ring, but the mix changes. Restaurants and bars are next, and this one hits people emotionally because dining out used to feel like a small escape. The industry can still post huge sales because prices are higher and people still want convenience. But operators are fighting traffic pressure, food costs, wages, rent, insurance, delivery commissions, and customers who are tired of paying more for less. Many diners do not say, "I quit restaurants." They say, "I will only go once this week," or "I will skip the drink." That small change can wreck margins. Every plate has labor, ingredients, utilities, waste, packaging, and time attached to it. The pressure is worse for sit-down restaurants because the customer now compares them with grocery stores, meal kits, frozen meals, and fast casual counters. The most controversial part is tipping fatigue. Many workers depend on tips, but many customers feel ambushed by screens asking for tips before service is even complete. Nobody likes saying this out loud because it turns customers and workers against each other, while the deeper issue is the business model. Prices rise, wages remain tense, tips become emotional, and everyone leaves slightly annoyed. Restaurants are not just selling food anymore. They are selling the idea that the extra cost is still worth it. The freight and trucking sector may be the most important sector most viewers almost never think about. When freight is weak, it means fewer goods are moving with confidence. Trucking firms can survive a bad month, but a long freight slump drains cash fast because trucks, insurance, maintenance, fuel, drivers, trailers, and debt do not wait for better demand. Recent freight data still shows shipments down from a year earlier, even after some month-to-month improvement. The industry can be getting less bad and still be bad. During the pandemic goods boom, too much capacity entered the market. More trucks, more small carriers, more hopes that high rates would last. Then, spending shifted, inventories changed, and rates fell. The controversial lesson is that cheap delivery is never truly cheap. Someone pays. Sometimes it is the driver waiting unpaid at a warehouse. Sometimes it is the small carrier accepting a weak rate just to keep cash flowing. Freight is a truth teller. If stores are nervous, manufacturers are cautious, and consumers are stretched, the trucking market feels it quickly. A parked truck is a signal that somebody somewhere decided not to order, not to restock, not to expand, or not to take a risk. Manufacturing is more complicated than the easy political speeches make it sound. Some factory surveys show growth, and some regional reports show weakness. Both can be true because manufacturing is not one thing. It is aircraft parts, appliances, chemicals, machinery, electronics, food processing, autos, and thousands of suppliers behind them. The sector struggles when input costs rise, trade rules shift, borrowing stays expensive, and customers delay big purchases. Factories also face an inventory problem. If companies stockpile because they fear shortages or tariffs, production can look strong for a while. But that is not the same as healthy demand. It is defensive buying. The controversial point is that bringing manufacturing back sounds simple until you price the full system. A factory needs skilled labor, stable power, permits, suppliers, transportation, automation, financing, and predictable policy. You cannot build all of that with slogans. Customers want lower prices, workers want higher pay, suppliers charge more, and capital equipment is expensive. Automation helps output, but it can shift jobs toward higher skills. Manufacturing is not dead. It is becoming tougher, more capital-heavy, and more selective. Agriculture is another sector where the public sees grocery prices and assumes farmers must be getting rich. Many are not. Farm income can remain above long-run averages and still fall from recent highs, especially after adjusting for inflation. That sounds confusing until you remember the farm economy runs on thin margins. Huge upfront costs, volatile commodity prices, debt, equipment, weather, fuel, fertilizer, land rent, and global trade. A farmer can sell a crop for millions and still keep far less than people imagine after costs are paid. The controversial truth is that the food system often protects the middle of the chain better than the people at the beginning. Farmers take weather risk, price risk, disease risk, machinery risk, and policy risk. Consumers see high prices at the store, but the farmer may be squeezed by input costs at the same time. Big machinery is so expensive that farmers delay purchases when crop prices soften, and that hurts machinery dealers, parts suppliers, rural lenders, and local tax bases. Farm stress rarely stays on the farm. It moves through small towns, repair shops, grain elevators, and community budgets. Banks and lenders are struggling in a way that is easy to miss because most people only notice banks when a branch closes or a headline gets scary. The pressure today is not only about deposits. It is also about loan quality, commercial real estate exposure, consumer stress, and the cost of money. When office values fall or refinancing gets harder, the pain can move to the lender holding the loan. When households carry record debt and delinquencies stay elevated, lenders must watch credit cards, auto loans, student loans, mortgages, and small business credit more carefully. The controversial part is that lending can look safe until collateral gets repriced. A building that looked valuable at low rates can look very different at high rates with empty floors. A consumer who looked reliable when groceries, rent, and insurance were lower can suddenly become fragile. Banks make money by pricing risk, but risk changes faster than a quarterly report. Smaller and regional lenders can be especially exposed when their local economies depend on real estate, farms, hotels, or small businesses. That does not mean every bank is in danger. It means the sector is carrying stress pockets that deserve attention. The auto sector is also under pressure, and not only because cars cost too much. The deeper issue is affordability across the whole ownership chain. New vehicles are expensive, insurance is expensive, repairs are expensive. Interest rates make monthly payments heavier. Used vehicles are not the bargain they used to be. Electric vehicles add another layer because demand is real, but uneven, and some buyers hesitate over charging, resale value, incentives, and price. Recent market data shows new electric vehicle sales down from a year earlier in one major monthly read, even as used electric vehicle interest improves in parts of the market. That is not the end of electric cars. It is the end of the fantasy that every transition moves in a straight line. The controversial point is that the industry pushed buyers toward bigger, pricier vehicles for years because margins were better. Now, many ordinary households want affordable transportation, and the market has fewer, truly cheap options. A monthly payment can look manageable only because the loan is stretched longer. That is not affordability. That is time camouflage. The car market is about what people can finance without turning the driveway into a second rent payment. Media, news, cable, and entertainment are struggling because attention has become the most crowded market in America. People still watch, listen, scroll, stream, and read, but the money no longer flows the old way. Cable keeps losing ground to streaming. Local news fights weaker ad markets and audience fragmentation. Studios face higher production costs and uncertain box office habits. Streaming platforms chase subscribers, then raise prices, then add ads, then crack down on sharing, and customers start asking why the new system feels like cable with extra passwords. The controversial truth is that the audience did not simply abandon media. Media trained the audience to expect everything everywhere all the time, then discovered that convenience does not automatically create profit. Newsrooms are exposed because search, social feeds, short video, and artificial intelligence summaries can separate content from the company that paid to report it. The public may consume the information while the original producer struggles to pay journalists. Entertainment has its own version of the same problem. Big franchises can still win, but mid-budget projects fight for oxygen. The result is fewer risky ideas, more sequels, more reboots, more layoffs, more paywalls, and more ads. Higher education is under stress, especially small, tuition-dependent colleges and programs with weak enrollment. The headline can say enrollment is up in some places, and that is true, especially where cost is lower or flexibility is better. But that does not save every campus. The pressure is uneven. Public universities with strong brands can grow. Community colleges can benefit from value-seeking students. Some private colleges, rural colleges, and low-demand programs face a harsher reality. The pool of traditional-age students is tightening in many regions, families are questioning return on investment, and students are asking whether a degree leads to a job that justifies the debt. The controversial part is that colleges sold the dream of transformation for decades, but families now want receipts. They ask about starting salaries, internships, debt, completion rates, and whether artificial intelligence will change the job they are training for. That does not mean education is worthless. It means the blank check era is fading. Programs with tiny enrollment become harder to defend. Campuses merge. Majors get cut. Staff positions disappear. A college is often a town's employer, landlord, cultural center, and customer base. Hospitals and healthcare providers are in a strange position because demand is high, employment is growing, and yet many providers still feel financially squeezed. More patients do not automatically mean more profit. Hospitals face labor costs, drug costs, supply costs, aging infrastructure, cyber risk, staffing shortages, and reimbursement rates that often lag behind the cost of care. Many hospitals say public insurance payments do not fully cover costs, and that shortfall has to be managed somehow. The controversial point is that America can spend an enormous amount on healthcare while the people delivering care still operate under pressure. Patients see bills that feel outrageous. Hospitals say reimbursement is inadequate. Workers feel burned out. Insurers negotiate. Drug and device costs rise. Everyone points somewhere else, and the patient stands in the middle. Rural hospitals and safety net providers face the sharpest danger because they cannot simply chase richer patients or cut essential services without hurting the community. A hospital is not easy to shrink. You cannot close an emergency department for half the week like a boutique shop. You need staff, lights, equipment, supplies, and readiness before the patient arrives. Clean energy and electric vehicle supply chains are struggling through a messy adjustment, even though long-term demand for power is huge. Battery storage can be growing while some solar, wind, battery, and electric vehicle projects are delayed, canceled, or repriced. High interest rates hurt projects that depend on large upfront investment. Policy uncertainty makes investors nervous. Tariffs and permitting delays raise costs. Grid connection queues slow projects that look good on paper. The controversial truth is that the energy transition is not just a technology story. It is a financing, permitting, politics, minerals, labor, land, and grid story. A project can be popular in a press release and still die in a spreadsheet if the cost of capital jumps. Electric vehicle factories face the same tension. The future may still be electric, but the path can include layoffs, pauses, inventory problems, and a shift toward hybrids or cheaper models. Consumers do not buy a transition. They buy a monthly payment, a charging plan, and confidence that the product will fit their life. Clean energy is not failing, but the easy money era made some plans look simpler than they were. Travel, hotels, and tourism are struggling in a selective way. Some hotels are improving, some cities are recovering, and some vacation spots remain packed. But the sector is not enjoying a clean, broad boom. Business travel is not what it once was. Urban hotels in many places still lag earlier norms. International travel patterns can shift quickly when currency, politics, safety concerns, visa rules, or airline prices change. Families are more price-sensitive, and many choose shorter trips, road trips, or cheaper lodging because food, airfare, parking, resort fees, and rental cars can turn a vacation into a financial shock. The controversial part is the fee game. Travelers hate seeing a room rate that looks affordable, then discovering resort fees, destination fees, parking fees, cleaning fees, early check-in fees, and service charges. The industry says fees reflect costs. Customers hear, the real price was hidden. Hotels also face labor shortages, wage pressure, insurance, property taxes, energy costs, and debt from years when owners expected smoother growth. A hotel can have decent occupancy and still struggle if operating costs rise faster than room revenue. Tourism sells memories, but the business runs on margins. The federal government and government-dependent services are another pressure point, even if people do not usually think of them as a sector. Federal employment has been declining in recent labor data, and the effect goes beyond payroll numbers. Contractors, consultants, office landlords, cafeterias, local transit, defense suppliers, research groups, and small firms near federal hubs can all feel changes in hiring, budgets, procurement, and policy. The controversial truth is that many Americans say they want smaller government until the cuts hit a service, a grant, a lab, a base, a local office, or a job in their own area. Government spending is woven into the private economy more deeply than campaign slogans admit. A delayed contract can freeze hiring at a private company. A canceled program can hit a university lab. A hiring slowdown can reduce demand for nearby apartments and restaurants. At the same time, taxpayers are right to question waste, duplication, and weak performance. That is the tension. Cutting government can save money in one column while creating pain in another column. The sector is struggling because uncertainty itself slows decisions. Finally, small businesses across many service sectors are under pressure, and they are the easiest to romanticize but the hardest to keep alive. A small business does not have the bargaining power of a national chain. It pays more for credit, insurance, rent, supplies, software, card processing, delivery apps, utilities, accounting, and compliance. It also has less room for error. One slow month can become a missed payment. One bad hire can damage service. One rent increase can erase profit. One broken air conditioner can turn into debt. The controversial point is that America praises small business while quietly building an economy that often favors scale. Big companies can negotiate better rates, absorb losses longer, use data more aggressively, and spread costs across many locations. Small firms face customers who want low prices, workers who need higher wages, landlords who want higher rent, and vendors who raise fees. Many owners are not getting rich. They are buying themselves a job with more risk and fewer days off. The consumer may see a price increase and blame greed. The owner may know it barely covers payroll. Small business stress is the summary of the whole economy. So what is the real picture? America is not facing one simple economic story. It is facing a split economy. Office buildings can weaken while prime towers improve. Restaurants can sell more dollars while serving fewer guests. Retail sales can rise while malls struggle. Freight can improve month to month while still sitting below last year. Hospitals can hire while margins tighten. Clean energy can grow while projects get canceled. Housing can avoid a crash while still blocking millions of buyers. That is why the phrase "the economy is strong" can sound true to one person and insulting to another. The biggest takeaway is that stress now hides in details: traffic, margins, refinancing, debt service, vacancy, payment size, and customer trust. Watch those signals, not just the loud headlines. The smart move is not panic. It is pattern reading. When one sector weakens, ask who sells to it, who lends to it, who works inside it, and who depends on its customers. That chain reaction is where ordinary people usually feel the damage first. It starts as a skipped purchase, then becomes a slower shift, then becomes a layoff, a closed location, or a town wondering why the traffic disappeared. Follow the whole chain. If this video helped you see the economy more clearly, hit like, share it with someone who still thinks everything is either perfect or collapsing, and answer this question: which struggling sector do you think will hurt ordinary Americans the most over the next year?